Welcome back. Let's go straight now to our politics desk with Natasha Piri, and she'll be giving us the politics wrap in terms of what we can expect this week in politics.
Thank you so much, Mbali. And of course, to our SABC viewers, welcome to another segment of the Politics Wrap. Now, moving on to the story, President Cyril Ramaphosa says regardless of the form or composition of the incoming administration, it is important that the momentum of the reforms instituted by the sixth administration be retained. In his weekly letter, Ramaphosa insists that economic growth, transformation and job creation have been at the center of his government's administration, and a change in direction from the programs to achieve this will derail the positive progress that has been made. The president has cited a recent study by the Bureau for Economic Research, which says that there is no need to reinvent the wheel with regards to the structural reforms in the energy, logistics, water and telecommunications sector currently undertaken by government. As the country prepares for a new administration, he has urged all parties to work together to form a stable government committed to economic reform to benefit all South Africans. Moving on to this story, Parliament says the first sitting of the National Assembly will go ahead as planned on Friday, the 14th of June. This follows after the umKhonto weSizwe party wrote to the Secretary of Parliament and the Chief Justice asking them not to continue the sitting. The party is not happy with the election results of the 2024 general elections.
All the political parties who garnered enough votes to gain seats in the National Assembly will attend Friday's sitting, all but the umKhonto weSizwe party.
In light of the MK party's express decision through their legal representatives not to attend the first sittings, Parliament has cancelled all arrangements for accommodation and flights for the party's elected members. This measure is to avoid incurring fruitless and wasteful expenditure.
The party told SABC that court action will follow if the letter of demand is not heeded. However, a constitutional law expert says this should have been the party's first move.
The first sitting of Parliament can only not if there is a court order to which direct otherwise. So in other words, I'm saying that for a first sitting of Parliament not to happen, a court order which then interdict the first sitting. So at this stage, there is no court order which interdict the first sitting. So the fact that the umKhonto weSizwe party, the results of the election, does not mean that the first sitting of Parliament cannot. Remember, in terms of the Constitution, the first sitting of Parliament must happen within 14 days after the results has been announced. And the results has been announced officially on the 2nd of June 2024. So from that date, we then have 14 days for a first sitting.
There has to be compelling reasons by the MK party to convince a court that the matter has to be heard on an urgent basis. Levy Ndou questions why the party has not lodged its application immediately after the results were announced.
Let's analyze MK party actions. Remember, the elections were announced officially on the 2nd of June 2024. Now we are on the 10th of June. Application, court, party, application to in the first sitting of Parliament is not there. It means that agency, if there is an allegation of agency, that will be self-created and cannot succeed in a court of law. I don't think an agent application will meet the requirements of Rule 6, subsection 12 of the Uniform Court Rules.
A political analyst at the University of South Africa says this is all part of a broader plan by the umKhonto weSizwe party to paint their members as victims.
And I think what they are doing now is that they've accumulated a lot of arguments to say that they are actually, that there's a political strategy against them that is being targeted by President Ramaphosa and the ANC, by the IEC, and even by the courts. ganging up against them, and that they are political victims of the situation. And that they can then use as an argument to say, or explanation for their followers to say, but that's the reason why we didn't reach the two-thirds majority point.
Now that the MK party has threatened to boycott the first sitting, what does this mean for its future?
It doesn't mean that they are completely excluded from Parliament or disqualified from Parliament. What they will not be able to do is that they will not be sworn in as members of Parliament with all the others. They will not be able to participate in the election of the President and of the Speaker, and also of the Deputy Speaker. When they decide that they want to come back to Parliament, join Parliament, they can do so. And they have been elected to it. Nothing disqualifies them for that. Then a judge will have to in as members of Parliament, and once they've done that, then become part of the community of parliamentarians in the National Assembly.
Now joining us now, we've got political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou, just to talk about this story and furthermore developments, especially around the Government of National Unity. Dr. Ndou, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News.
Good evening to you, Natasha. Good evening to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Ndou, we've been hearing deliberations. Various political parties have met over this past weekend and this week, talking about the government and the proposal of the Government of National Unity. But I just want you to coin and to explain to us what the difference is between a Government of National Unity and a coalition government, especially for those who don't know.
I think it's important to indicate from the onset that there is a very thin line that would separate the two, but they are quite separate and they operate differently. In a coalition government, which we have observed for some time in the metros and in other local councils, different political parties would come together, calculate their numbers, and find out if they can be able to make a 50+1, and then they form a government. What they would do is that in most instances, they would look as to whether they can be able to work together. And in most instances, the principles and ideology would not matter most, because in some instances, it will be an element of wanting to isolate certain political parties. In some instances, they will talk about the political parties having to vote for other political parties, and they will say it's not necessarily a coalition, but an arrangement would have been made, which will therefore make whatever arrangement that has been done a coalition, because there is working together. In a government of national unity, you get a situation where different political parties are given a responsibility to be part and parcel of government, as in of the executive. What would therefore happen is that in a government of national unity, they would follow some sort of a proportional representation, and therefore all parties that have participated better, they might say those who have got 5% or 10% should actually be invited to be part of government. And therefore such parties would therefore be given responsibilities in government. That creates a situation where many parties are participants in government, and it will also mean that if one or two of such parties, depending on the numbers that they constitute, decides to withdraw from the government of national unity, the government of national unity can still continue to operate. Whilst when you look at coalition, there is a lot of desperation for numbers, and that is why if one party decides to pull out of a coalition, most of such governments will therefore collapse. So in the GNU, it is about bringing all people to come together. As the name is self-explanatory, is the government of national unity. bringing all these people together to cooperate.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. I just want to bring you back to a conversation that a veteran politician, Rolf Meyer, who is also part of the Government of National Unity in 1994, said. He had said that it is possible in this current day and context to actually form a government of national unity, but the national interest of the electorate must prevail. So given this current context, do you agree with him that the government of national unity could actually work in 2024?
When political parties were campaigning, all of them, they've put down their manifestos, they've put down their policies, and all of them were saying that they are prepared to become a government. At the same time, all these political parties were saying they are also prepared to serve and work for the people. The expectation now would be that now that there is an opportunity for these political parties to work together, it is their time now to demonstrate to all of us that indeed, in the interest of South Africa, in the interest of service delivery, they can be able to put all their efforts together, put down their interests for South Africa together, and do what is best for South Africa, which is working together. Our politicians should have learned the experiences of the different metros where we've got instability, where we had a lot of infighting, and the citizens suffered. This is the opportunity now, in my view, for our politicians to rise above campaigns, rise above electioneering, and say, this is the time to serve the people. I believe that it is possible if these people come together without hidden agendas, they can be able to deliver the best government system that we can all be proud of.
And I guess the proof will be in the pudding when we hear those, political parties like the DA, like the IFP, or yet to brief members of the media about their deliberations over this weekend. But I mean, just going back and staying on this point, we've seen the Patriotic Alliance saying that it's keen on being a part of the government of national unity. Patricia de Lille, also speaking to SABC News, had said that the Secretary General of the ANC has contacted her. The EFF announcing that they're not interested, in working with the FF Plus and the DA in this government of national unity. I want to also take you back to the DA's elective congress last year, where the DA had actually declared the EFF as enemy number one. You also have, small parties that have actually entered parliament. Your Rise and Zansi saying that they are interested in joining this government of national unity. With all these factors, what do you think is likely to be the outcome?
Different political parties are still negotiating with one another. We should also not be convinced that it is only the idea of the government of national unity. We might also be having other discussions that are taking place which might not be taking prominence and which we might not be aware of. There has been a lot of anxiety and excitement about elections, and based on these negotiations, anything can happen. We might be talking more about the government of national unity, and we can still get surprised when we get coalitions continuing. What, in my view, has to happen now is that from today until the last minutes of the sitting on the 14th of June, political parties will still be negotiating until they reach an agreement, unless they would still go out, make a press conference and say, this is what we've actually agreed upon. But anything at this stage is possible because you don't know what are the issues that are being put on the table, what are the views of the supporters and members of the different political parties. So it will therefore depend on how the negotiators are able to sell their ideas and others having a buy-in. But at the same time, we need to be very, very careful of this kind of arrangements, because there is also a possibility that some political parties can enter into a government of national unity and even in a coalition with hidden agendas, which becomes the source of instability.
Okay. Dr. Ndou, I think some South Africans are also anxious because you look at the issue of time. I mean, the first sitting is this Friday. So what do you make out of that?
Well, it needs good negotiators. It needs people who will be able to persuade one another. It also needs people who are patient enough and strategists to be able to ensure that in the last few days that we're left up with, we're able to come up with a baby that will be able to rise and save South Africa. But at the same time, it is time for our politicians to leave personal interests and focus on building the future for South Africa.
Okay. Dr. Ndou, I also just want to focus on the recent developments that we've been seeing today. We've been seeing MK Party making headlines. They wrote to the Secretary of Parliament saying that the party does not view the first sitting of Parliament as constitutional and has instructed its members to not attend the first sitting. Parliament then responded by cancelling all the flights and accommodation for those 58 members of Parliament in light of the party informing them that they will not be attending Parliament's first proceedings. We then saw that later on by the expelled MK Party founder Jabulani Khumalo saying that he will go ahead to attend Parliament's first sitting this Friday. And then again, we saw a letter from Parliament writing to Jabulani Khumalo saying that he's no longer a member of Parliament. What do you make out of this? And also, what happens in this case? Will it affect Parliament's proceedings this Friday?
There are a lot of things that are happening with the MK Party. Firstly, I'm not surprised that they've raised these kind of issues, because even before the declaration of the elections, the leader of the MK Party, Mr. Jacob Zuma, indicated that the election should not be declared because he feels that certain wrong things happened. My sense is that everything that happens until we have got the first sitting of Parliament, it works through different stages. You have campaigns, you have elections declared, you therefore have the first sitting, and all these other factors have to follow. I don't think the IEC might have decided to declare the results knowing that there are very serious issues that could pose a challenge related to what is actually happening with the MK Party. My view is that it's quite unfortunate that there are people who voted for the MK Party. They wanted to see the MK Party in Parliament representing them, and the unfortunate part is that they cannot be able to do so. Part of the challenges could be that there are these internal battles that are happening within the MK Party, Mr. Jabulani Khumalo, and the leadership of the MK Party. It could be one of the issues as well that could be preventing the members of the MK Party to be able to go to Parliament. Remember, there are still court proceedings that are going on that talks to the leadership of the party. And my view is that maybe they could also be using this opportunity to be able to try and put their house in order to avoid an embarrassment of sending people to Parliament who might still be removed as members of Parliament. But also, I think with the limited time that is available, there is a lot that is on the plate of the MK Party that needs to be resolved so that even when they go to Parliament, they go there as a one strong unit.
Okay, Dr. Ndou, always a pleasure having you on our show, and thank you so much for unpacking those various issues with us. Of course, Bali, this Friday is supposed to be quite an eventful day as the first sitting of Parliament, will sit. But of course, as SABC News, we've got you covered on that, and we will be bringing you all the latest details in regards to that.